Yo, what is good, Jets Nation? Welcome back to another Jets media video. And today we got a special guest. It's Ian from Jet Central. How you doing, Ian? Welcome to the channel.
Rich, what's up, dude? How are you, man?
I'm doing great. You have no idea the amount of times I've had Jets fans commenting on my videos, commenting on my streams. You got to get Ian from Jet Central on the channel. And I made sure it happened because we all know that you've been in the game for so long. Us as a Jets community, we appreciate all the content you bring out there on Jets YouTube. So do you just want to give your thoughts about being a Jets YouTuber for so long and how that progress went from you just going from the start and where you're at today?
Yeah, dude, for sure. Well, first and foremost, man, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I will say this, it's kind of unfortunate because I mean, I feel like I've been doing vids for, a couple of years now, and it's been like the the end of the Todd Bowles era, obviously losing a bunch of games, then transitioning to Adam Gase, and now transitioning to, the first year Robert with Saleh. And that first season was kind of like the rebuilding year. I don't really feel like a lot of Jets fans expected, this massive Super Bowl push or anything like that. So there's unfortunately been a lot of losing, but I think it speaks volumes about, the Jets fans themselves, because they're tuning in, they're watching these videos, and so I mean, over these past couple seasons, the Jets just have not been that good of a team, but yet here the fans are supporting, numerous channels, and it's just awesome.
Yeah, and that's the best part about this whole thing, because as we both know, the Jets have not been good in recent years, but they're still, the fan base is there. They're all over YouTube. They're all over on Twitter. They're on Instagram. We're so passionate. And even though the Jets have not won a lot of games, we've not had a winning record since 2015, the passion is there. And that's why it's so awesome to have this healthy Jets community, that we're all in this together. So let's get right into some Jets talk. Let's talk about the recap of last year. So going into your expectations, heading into Robert Saleh's first year as a Jets head coach, we have a rookie quarterback in Zach Wilson, a rookie offensive play caller, Mike Lafleur. So based on your expectations going into the year and based on the results, how would you recap that season in a nutshell?
Yeah, so I think, like, at face value, it's kind of tough because, we only had 4 wins on the year, obviously lost a bunch of games. Lost games because of, in certain situations, it was the offense, certain games, it was the defense, certain times it was coaching, right? With the quarterback sneak debacle, we all remember it. But I think, like, just, thinking back before the season, my realistic expectations, my number one most important thing that I wanted to see from the team was growth throughout the year. Does this Jets team look better in week 14, week 15, week 16? As opposed to week 3, week 4, week 5. And I think the answer is yes. Looking at how this Jets team did against teams like Philadelphia, Tampa Bay, super impressive stuff. Now, unfortunately, the Buffalo Bills were kind of like a buzzsaw at the end of the season. I mean, we were like 16, 17-point favorites going into underdogs going into the game. Yeah. So I kind of want to take that game and put it aside. I know it kind of sounds like an excuse, but outside of that game, I definitely feel like there was a lot of growth from not only just the players, but from the coaching staff as well towards the back half of the year.
Yeah, speaking of the coaching staff, I feel like Jets fans need to remember that this year was all about the development of not only the players, but the coaching staff, like you alluded to. We have a first-year head coach in Robert Saleh, first-year offensive coordinator Mike Lafleur, and I feel like they progressed as the season went on. So what was your first impressions of Robert Saleh as the head coach? Do you feel like he was the right hire at the time? And give your thoughts on Mike Lafleur as well as he progressed.
Yeah, so with Saleh, I got to be honest, like I was expecting a little more from the defensive side of the football. Maybe it's just because I've been a Jet fan my entire life and I'm used to seeing, Mangini and Rex and, these stacked defenses. Even Todd Bowles defenses produced, Greg Williams defenses produced. And those weren't, some of them were stacked with talent, but not everyone. I mean, like going back to like the end of the Rex Ryan era where we had like Salim Hakeem, Darren Walls, like we didn't have elite talent, but those defenses produced. And to see the Achilles heel of the 2021 New York Jets be the defense, right? Literally dead last in the NFL. And you have that defensive-minded head coach. He's coming over from San Francisco. It was pretty disappointing. That's just my personal take. Offensively, I kind of, going back to the original point, it was disappointing at first, right? The goose egg against Denver, tons of interceptions against New England and, against the Falcons as well. It was just kind of a mess. It was clunky, but I kind of expected that offensively, especially with Mike Lafleur being that first time play caller, first time, installing an offense, developing a rookie quarterback on the fly, not really having that veteran presence early at the backup quarterback spot. But going back to the growth of the season, I was impressed with how the offense ended. But defensively, I think we need a lot of work. And, you look at the scheme, it's all based around getting after the quarterback with your 4 down linemen. We couldn't do that. We couldn't stop the run. We couldn't stop the pass. We couldn't take the football away. It was just a mess on so many different fronts that's definitely an area that I want to get cleaned up, before the start of next season.
Yeah, you mentioned it beautifully, my man. The defense is what Jets fans have been known for our entire life. I mean, we're both younger Jets fans, and we feel like we've known the Jets, like you said, the Mangini, the Rex Ryans, and now all of a sudden we hire a defensive-minded head coach, and the defense is bottom in the league. And obviously, there's a lot of factors going into it with the injuries and all in the youth movement, but still, at the end of the day, we want to see the scheme and the players to be developed in that scheme. There were some bright spots. There were some players like an Eccles, like a Michael Carter II, that looks like not stars, but guys we got late in the draft that we can be optimistic about. But we need to attack this offseason with a lot of aggression on the defensive side of the ball, because what we saw was really unfortunate. We're not being able to get to the quarterback, and I couldn't agree more. The NFL playoffs are here, and Draftkings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, are kicking things off with a huge offer you do not want to miss. Counting down the Super Bowl 56, Draftkings Sportsbook is giving you an opportunity with 56-1 odds on any NFL playoff game of your choosing. You bet just $5, you can win up to $280 of free bets if your team is indeed victorious. Yup, that's right. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving you an opportunity to bet just $5 on any game of your choosing to win up to $280 of free bets. That's 56-1 odds. If Sportsbook is not available in your area just yet, you do not have to worry, because there's still a lot to play for this NFL playoff. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes on the DraftKings Daily Fantasy Football Contest. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Make sure you guys download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use my code JETSMedia. Once again, DraftKings Sportsbook is giving you an opportunity to have 56-1 odds on any NFL playoff game of your choosing. Bet just $5, win up to $280 of free bets. Make sure you guys use my code JETSMedia. Once again, that's promo code JETSmedia. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Let's talk about the rookie quarterback and Zach Wilson. We drafted him at 2nd overall. He goes out there. We all know what happened. He starts off the year rough. 4 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He gets injured. He sits back. He watches Mike White have the Mike White game. Josh Johnson even goes out there and looks decent against the Colts. And then Joe Flacco goes out there and actually looks good. And all of a sudden, Mike Lafleur is in the booth, and the offense is just amazing. And some Jets fans at the time are like, why can't Zach Wilson do this? And this is a good thing for Zach. He gets to sit back and watch veterans take over the offense and structure it properly. So then Zach comes back after injury. He finishes with around 8 total touchdowns to 3 total turnovers or something like that. He showed great progression, finished off with 5 straight games with no interception. So what was your thoughts of Zach Wilson's rookie season? And what can Jets fans expect for his future on this team, especially going into year number 2?
Yeah, so I think to kind of answer the second part of the question first, that's kind of up in the air because we don't know, what free agency moves are going to be pulled off. We don't know how Joe Douglas is going to be attacking the wide receiver position. Will we sign a guy? Will we trade for a guy? Will we draft somebody? We don't know how, what the offensive line will look like. There's a lot of question marks as far as what's going to happen in 2022. But looking at Wilson's rookie season, I feel like in a vacuum, from the start of the year to the end of the year, obviously being the 2nd overall pick, you would want to see a little more. You want to see a more complete player, more of a complete season. But again, I think for me personally, I can't speak for everybody. I really value growth from rookie quarterbacks. And I totally understand that Zach Wilson did not have the best supporting cast. There was, constant turmoil on the offensive line. Mekhi Becton's out for the entire year. Corey Davis ends up getting hurt on the outside. Elijah Moore missed time. Michael Carter missed time. Like, there was injuries, youth. The coaching staff. Saleh is a rookie head coach. Michael Lafleur is a rookie OC. Everybody's, kind of in this together for the first time. So with that in mind, taking everything into consideration, I don't think it's as bad as the numbers say. I mean, if you're a Cardinals fan, you look at Zach Wilson's numbers, you're like, dude, this guy's god awful. Like, this guy's 2nd overall pick, and he's couldn't even rack up 10 touchdowns or something like that through the air. Like, what is happening? But I think if you're a Jet fan, or, you know, you really take a deep dive with this team and understand how much adversity that this offense was going through, and really defensively as well. I mean, like, you know, when the defense is giving up that many points, that many yards, just constantly getting burned, again, the worst defense in football, the offense is going to be in bad situations. You can't really control the game if you're constantly losing. So I think when I look at this entire season, again, from top to bottom, I don't really like how it started, but I'm pleased with how it ended.
Yeah, I think that's this Jet season in a nutshell. Started off rough on all counts, and then we show progression at the end. So what did Zach Wilson show you that should give Jets fans some optimism about his future? Was it his arm talent? Was it his ability to escape people behind the pressure, escaping defensive linemen? We showed the athleticism against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That 53-yard run was insane. There's a lot of flashes, but the consistency wasn't there, which you're expecting from a rookie quarterback. So what type of things from Zach Wilson to you that shows you that he has potential to be the franchise guy for the Jets?
Yeah, I mean, you just brought it up before, where Wilson didn't turn the ball over in 5 straight games to end the year. I mean, I think, you know, we knew Zach Wilson was kind of a mobile guy back at BYU. We knew he had a really good arm. We knew at times he could be super accurate, but he came into the league and was throwing turnovers left and right. I mean, I think that week 2 game he turned the ball over once against Carolina. I think he had 4 picks in week 2 against the Patriots, and then obviously putting up 0 points against Denver in Denver. Like, you know, you're watching the start of the season and like, you're thinking to yourself, like, how many turnovers is this offense going to commit? But to end the season on a good note like that, it shows that Zach Wilson was playing within the confines of the offense. He knew where to go with the football. He wasn't rattled. He didn't look like a deer in headlights. He looked calm. He looked collected, and he really did a good job. And you brought this up before too. Mike Lafleur calling plays in the box. Zach Wilson had that kind of middle of the season rest where he got hurt and he got to watch Joe Flacco and Mike White. I definitely feel like that benefited him in the long run. So to see Zach Wilson not turning the ball over, really having a good understanding of, okay, this is what the defense is trying to do, so therefore I'm going to check it down here. I'm going to take the easy stuff, as we heard Robert Saleh and Lafleur kind of reference throughout the season in multiple interviews and press conferences. So I think for me, Wilson's ability to not turn the ball over late.
Yeah, and I agree. And I also think going into year number 2 with Zach Wilson, something that's going to benefit him so much is the continuity factor. He doesn't have to worry about learning an entire new playbook where he had the same offense. Lafleur is developing as an OC. He's going to be in the offseason cooking up some new plays. And Zach Wilson doesn't have to worry about learning new verbiage, learning new plays, learning the offense. He can just go in there and master it. And like you said, he was so more comfortable at the end of the season. So that can carry into year number 2, outside of what the Jets do in the offseason in terms of, new wide receivers, new protection, new running backs, and new playmakers. I feel like Zach Wilson going into year 2 of the same system is going to benefit him tremendously. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I've actually gotten a lot of messages over the past couple of days, kind of talking about Zach Wilson's rookie season and comparing it to Sam Darnold's and how they ended, because it was kind of the same thing. Both quarterbacks came in with tons of hype, tons of pressure, not much help around them. Turning the football over like crazy early, but then end of the year really, really strong. I think the difference was Sam Darnold, although he looked fantastic against, teams like Houston and Green Bay, he goes into the offseason, again, with not much help, but it's Adam Gase coming in with logins, and it's not so much Gase himself. It's just, hey, I have to learn a brand new system. Everything that I've learned from, again, a verbiage standpoint, progressions, all that kind of West Coast stuff that I learned with John Bates at OC, or as the OC, is all, we could just throw all of it out the window, because now we're with Gase and we're doing all the shotgun, short passing, all that kind of stuff. So with Zach Wilson, he's not going to have to, take the rookie playbook and just trash it and have to learn a brand new one, much like Trevor Lawrence is going to have to, and Justin Fields is another guy that's going to have to come in, and they're essentially restarting their rookie year.
Yeah, and I think the word that we can use with that is continuity, something that the Jets have lacked for a while, having the same guys around you, and he's going to have the same guys in Elijah Moore, Michael Carter, all these guys to develop with. So I feel like that's going to be really fun to watch, especially to see what the Jets going to do in the offseason to add to the offense. So getting into your favorite moment of last season, Ian, is there one particular moment in the season that you will remember and say that is definitely number one?
Great question. Great question. And I really want to hear your thoughts on this as well. I think for me, it was probably the Bengals game. I mean, to see Mike
I
White,
was there. I was at that game.
I know, dude, I know you
Crazy.
were, man. You're lucky. You're lucky. I wish I was there. But to see Mike White step in for his first NFL game, by the way, against a team that is currently in the AFC Championship game, that's number one insane. But to look at his just overall numbers, look at his poise, um, getting the win at home. I mean, that game, I think his jersey's actually in the Hall of Fame or
Yeah.
something like that. Like, what an amazing moment. That doesn't happen every day. That doesn't happen every year, So that's just definitely going to be one of those games where, 5 years from now, you're going to be talking to your friends and you're going to say, hey, remember that Bengals game, Mike White, like just an absolutely legendary performance.
Yeah, and the funny thing about going to that game is me and all my friends heading into MetLife, we're like making a joke out of it because Mike White's starting, so we're expecting to get blown out. So we're making a Mike White chant. We're like, Mike White is gonna go crazy. And then all of a sudden he does what he does. And then leaving the game when they won, we're doing the chants for real. And we're like, wait a second. Mike White's the real. And then it was just an incredible moment for Jets fans that will never forget. Definitely high up there. My personal favorite moment, and it's probably the majority, but I'll just never forget being live during this moment. It was just like a feeling of, wow, maybe he is this type of guy. And that's when Zach Wilson pointed Corey Davis to go long and made that crazy pass against the Tennessee Titans. That moment for me was just like, wow, Zach Wilson, this is why you're the second overall pick, because that was just a baller mentality. His ability to just do what we did as kids growing up. Hey, go long, go far. Like, it just felt like a backyard style quarterback play. And that will always be one of my favorite moments of the Jets season for sure. And I think that Bengals game is number 2 for me. Now, getting into the last question of recapping this season before we get into the offseason coming up, if you can give us one player that's your favorite on both offense and defense from this past season that's currently on the Jets roster, who would those 2 players be?
Yeah, so offensively, George Fant. I think he's a guy that doesn't get
Nice.
enough credit. I think he comes in, he produces, he keeps his head down, he works hard, underappreciated, underrated. He can play on the left side, he can play on the right side. He's a versatile player. He was Joe Douglas's like first free agent signing, like first like guy that he brought in, like the first JD guy. And he was a swing tackle back in Seattle. I understand that he wasn't like the sexy, like top 10 pick, like, like this first round type of guy coming in. He was like a backup in Seattle. Like, this is the guy that we're going to be entrusting the offensive line to, or, entrusting protecting a quarterback to. But hey, I mean, I think he's every single year George Fant has produced. I've been impressed with what he's been able to do. And then defensively, Quincy Williams, I love how he plays.
Nice.
I love how he attacks the ball carrier. I love how he attacks offensive players in general, how hard he hits players. And I feel like his motor, his effort level is always at 110%. And I feel like if the entire defense had that same mentality, like there's a lot of things like you can't control, like your size, your talent level, but if you can control how hard you play. And Quincy has his like foot down on the gas pedal every single play, every single drive, and I love that.
I love that you just picked 2 very underrated players. So my question about those 2 players in your eyes, will both of them be starting next year? Or do you think they're going to have more backup roles? Do you think the Jets are going to go out there and either draft a tackle or sign a tackle over Fant? Obviously, Becton's the biggest outlier there. And then defensively speaking, is Quincy Williams going to be starting alongside CJ, or do you think they're going to try to upgrade there?
So good question. Interesting question. I think with offensive line, Joe Douglas will definitely try to pull some strengths and add some O-line talent, whether it's through free agency or the draft. I mean, with that 4th overall pick, I mean, so many guys are potentially going to be sitting there, whether you want to look at, Guanu from NC State, Neal from Alabama, Charles Cross, Mississippi State. I mean, that could be another Joe Douglas type of guy. And then Morgan Moses is a free agent. Mekhi Becton missed the entire season last year outside of that week 1 game. So I feel like tackle is just completely up in the air, but Fant is kind of that steady force at the tackle position. He's a guy that we can count on. Hey, if Becton, if his injury is still lingering on, we can take Fant, put him at left tackle and feel good about it. If we can't bring Moses back and we don't happen to draft anybody at right tackle, then all of a sudden we can roll with Becton at left and then Fant at right. So that's kind of like up in the air. I feel like at linebacker though, Quincy will definitely be on the team. I don't see the Jets, parting ways with him or trading him or anything like that. I definitely feel like he improved as the season went on and he really made a mark. I mean, I liked him back in Jacksonville, but when we acquired him, I didn't think that he was going to be my favorite player on the defense.
Yeah.
One of my favorite players on the team. But as far as being a starter next year, that's interesting because, hey, maybe the Jets go out and draft a Devin Lloyd with the 10th overall pick. You're not going to go draft a guy like that and sit him on the bench, So I think, I'm looking at the linebacker core. Gerard Davis is, going to hit the market. I don't see him being back with the team. I think there's a chance Quincy could definitely start. And I would much prefer Quincy over, maybe guys like Thompson, some younger guys on the roster. Because he's obviously got like a lot of playing experience and he fits what Saleh wants to do defensively. But I don't think it's 100% locked in guaranteed that he's going to be the starter. But I mean, who knows? Like we're only in mid-January right now. So a lot of time before now and the start of next season.
Yeah, so an interesting stat actually this morning on Twitter that CJ Mosley and Quincy Williams combined for the third most total tackles in the NFL as a linebacker duo. So if that doesn't tell you that they might be thinking about that being the starting linebackers, I think so. And I also feel like George Fant deserves a contract extension. I know that he's going into a year where we're going to pick up his option. I think it's around 10 million. And I'm so happy you brought him up because he's probably the most underappreciated guy. Swing tackle, can go right tackle, left tackle, the insurance policy for Mekhi Becton. And I'm all on board for, obviously he's going to be on the Jets this season. There's no doubt they're going to pick up that option, but I look into an extension, especially if he is playing the way that he did last year. So now let's dive into the offseason. Now, this is going to be fun because Joe Douglas has all the ammunition in the world, whether that's the draft, whether that's the draft capital, whether that's cap space, ammunition to be aggressive in the trade market. So we're going to start off with free agency first. Are there any players on the team that you would like the Jets to re-sign? Obviously, the big guys are guys like Braxton Berrios. We know that Morgan Moses is hitting the open market. Luckily for us, in my opinion, John Franklin Myers, we don't have to worry about him hitting the open market. We gave him that contract extension. So who are some players on the Jets that are current free agents that you'd like to see them re-sign?
Yeah, I mean, you just talked about Berrios. I mean, he's first and foremost. I definitely want to see him back, unless, of course, he's asking for, like 10 million a season. I don't think that's going to be the case. But yeah, I mean, like a 3-year, $17 million deal, I could definitely see that happening. I don't want to say underrated because like a lot of Jets fans really love this guy, but I feel like across the league, he's not really appreciated, is Tardif at guard. I felt like not only did we just get a major steal from Kansas City, swapping Brown for Tardif, but he came in and he was an instant upgrade over Greg Van Roten, right? Obviously. And, he has a couple of different career paths outside of football that he could pursue. We'll see what happens there. But I feel like, a cheap 1 year, $5 million, 1 year, $6 million contract could bring back LTD. I think he was a valuable piece, and it doesn't hurt to add a guy who's not only just a veteran, but he has the Super Bowl championship under his belt all those years with Kansas City. And then, some other players too, like Javelin Guidry, underrated player who is so young. And I feel like you could get him for like under $1 million. So just a depth move there. And I mean, of course, we do have some other guys like Morgan Moses, like you said, maybe a Tevin Coleman, depending on how like the running back market plays out. But yeah, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think Berrios is in my number one guy. I've loved Braxton Berrios from the start. If you even look back, not even this season, every single time Jamison Crowder was down, Braxton Berrios filled in and was productive. Always reliable for Sam Darnold at the time and Zach Wilson. So I would love Braxton Berrios here. And his contract might be a little more expensive just because he's an all-pro kick returner. He might have a little leverage there. The thing that I think of right away, Joe Douglas learned from his mistake with Robbie Anderson. Obviously, Robbie's coming off a down year, but at the time, it looked like we should have not have let Robbie Anderson walk out the door. And Joe Douglas at the time, admitted that. And he said, that was a mistake. So that's interesting to see. Joe Douglas has a pending free agent again of his own, a wide receiver that he got on the waiver wires, his own guy from the Patriots. So if you can give him like that contract that you mentioned, that's a no-brainer. He needs to be back first and foremost. And LDT for sure. You got to re-sign that man. We got him for free. We traded him for Daniel Brown. Daniel Brown's back on the roster at the end of the season. And whether he's a starting right guard or a depth, I think that is a no-brainer. You got to bring him back. And for sure, Morgan Moses, I don't really expect us to re-sign because he had a really good season for the Jets. He was durable, and he's probably going to be looking for a big contract. So I don't think the Jets are going to be wanting to pay him. And Marcus May, I think he's done with the Jets. I think Jamison Crowder might be done. So there's going to be a lot of interesting moves for the Jets when it comes to signing our own guys. But when it comes to who the Jets should pursue in free agency, Are there any top guys that you think that the Jets should be willing to open up the bag for? Are there any guys that you can see, that are, not first tier or second tier, maybe third tier guys that we can get for cheaper on the free agency market that the Jets should be pursuing?
Yeah. So real quick to go back to players that, or I guess positions to re-sign. Backup quarterback is another thing. It's
Oh
completely
yeah.
slipped my mind. Either
Mike White.
Mike White or Joe Flacco, I would be fine with either one. But as far as like big name free agents, I think really the first couple positions that come to mind, safety and tight end for me. I mean, I know wide receiver, I know corners kind of in that mix as well, but I think safety and tight end are the two biggest needs right now on the team. And of course, right guard, if we don't bring back LTD. At safety, I mean, Jesse Bates, I think Tracy Walker from Detroit is an interesting name to watch. Reed from Houston. I mean, there's a lot. Marcus Williams from the Saints. I don't see the Saints bringing Williams back. And you just talked about Marcus May. I don't think he's going to be back with the Jets either, but I think it's a mistake to just ignore the safety position. And I want to see the Jets be aggressive in that department, whether it's through free agency or the draft. If we decide to pass on all of these, available safeties that would come in and be day one upgrades, then I would like to see us attack the position through the draft. Whether it's, a Brisker, Dax Hill, Kyle Hamilton, who knows? And then as far as tight end is concerned, I mean, man, there's so many names to watch here, like Hurst, Gesicki from the Dolphins, Schultz from the Cowboys, Njoku from the Browns.
Njoku,
like there's
yeah.
a lot of players, dude, that would come in and upgrade this team. I think all of those guys would be better than Ryan Griffin and Tyler Kroft.
I honestly couldn't agree more. I think the tight end position should be the first and foremost in terms of revamping the entire thing. Sign one or two tight ends, draft one or two tight ends, because we need to sign one and draft one. Because I'm sorry, Ryan Griffin, you had one good season with us. I'm good on you. Tyler Kroft, all right, you're a veteran, but I want somebody that Zach Wilson can rely on. He's a big-time impact, not only in the receiving game, but can be an impact blocker in the run game. And there's a lot of players that we're going to fall in love with in the draft, especially in our own Senior Bowl roster. So that goes into the draft. Let's get into this one because this is really fun. We got so many picks, Ian, to talk about. We got the first round, 4 and 10. We got the second round, 35 and 38, I believe. We got 9 picks in the first 5 rounds. So before we get into, some mock drafts or who the targets that we want in all these in these rounds, who are some positions that you want to say? Obviously, you said safety and tight end, but how do you think the Jets and Joe Douglas are going to move about this draft when it comes to the first 9 picks, just in a nutshell, when it comes to positions? Are there anybody in this draft class that you think the position is really good in? Like, is it a good tight end class? Is it a good defensive class? What do you think the Jets are going to be doing heading into this draft in terms of the position of needs?
Yeah, so I mean, you just mentioned the tight end position in the draft. I think it's stacked. I mean, Likely from Coastal, Charlie Kohler, Iowa State, Rose or Allen from Iowa State. I mean, there's a lot of different guys here. McBride, Colorado State. There's so many tight ends in this class that I feel like would come in and be upgrades for and that's like the beauty about being, a bad team is like you can get guys in the 3rd, 4th round, just like Michael Carter, like we've seen middle round guys come into the Jets locker room and immediately start producing. Bryce Hall was like a late round guy. We just don't have that much overall talent on the team. So that's kind of the beauty of having so many draft picks and tons of cap space available. But I think when we look at the tight end, knowing how Joe Douglas likes to build his teams, knowing where he came from in Philadelphia and seeing how that team won a Super Bowl, right, with a great offensive line, I think with Mekhi Becton's injury, with all of the free agents, with probably going to be releasing Van Roten, and by the way, trading 2 third-round picks and to move up to go get AVT, Joe Douglas wants to build this offensive line up. We had Fan on the roster, but we go out and we sign Morgan Moses anyway. I think Joe Douglas really wants to stack this position in, get a lot of talent, get a lot of building blocks. So whether that's, across from Mississippi State, Neal, Ekwonu, like we were talking about before, or even Tyler Linderbaum. I really like Linderbaum. Hey, I know he's a safety. I know he's a safety, man, but like, I don't want to go in with the whole positional value, like thing in mind. I kind of understand it with safety, but I think with center, there's a lot of arguments like, well, why would you draft an interior offensive lineman, in the top 10 when you have so many other needs? I think Linderbaum is just that elite of like an elite level prospect that now makes Connor McGovern expendable. He's one of the highest paid centers in football. You could take McGovern and trade him or cut him or move him over to right guard, whatever you want to do. You're upgrading at center. And I don't want to voluntarily like put blinders on and saying, well, he's interior offensive line. And, according to our chart, interior offensive linemen aren't really highly valued on the positional value ranking. So therefore we're not going to draft him, or we're going to ignore him and draft another position. But I think offensive line will be the target, whether it's at 4 or 10 in the first round.
Yeah, I'm really happy you brought that up because we align on the vision in terms of this first round, because Joe Douglas came here and he understood that this offensive line was a mess, and he's a former offensive lineman himself. And the best thing about Joe Douglas is he hires Robert Saleh, who has the same exact vision of building this team through the trenches, defensively and offensively. If you guys watched Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh's interview with Eric Allen after the season, they both talked about that. They both align on that vision. And I would not be shocked if we draft an offensive lineman in the first round. I think it's very, very likely. So when it comes to the first round, you mentioned offensive line. My ideal first round, and let me know your thoughts about this, is Kayvon Thibodeau falling to 4. I know that's really unlikely. And then getting Linderbaum at 10, getting a guy in the trenches on both sides of the ball. I do not see Joe Douglas not drafting in the trenches for both these picks. If maybe not both, but definitely one of the two will be offensive line or defensive line.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just don't think, and again, it's mid-January, I just don't think Thibodeau falls. I mean, he could go to Jacksonville. Detroit's taking a pass rusher, whether it's Aiden or Kayvon. And then Houston, I mean, he's a really, really good fit there. I mean, Houston definitely needs a lot of help off the edge, and they kind of need some cornerstones on that team, let alone the defense. But dude, if Kayvon is there, that would be.
Yeah, that's just be manifesting.
I would buy his jersey right there. Like that night, I would be trying to go get his jersey. Like that's how much I love Kayvon. And then at 10, if we go out and draft Linderbaum, I would be totally amped up. I would be pumped. Now my fear is that the Giants draft Linderbaum at like 7, because they have the 2 first-round picks as well. They can draft like the safe player, and then they could go out and they could take that swing at another position of need, and they really need a center. So that's kind of the risk you take. But I mean, you look at how the Buffalo Bills were built, and who's running the show now with the Giants. There was a lot of emphasis on the offensive line with Deion Dawkins and Mitch Morse coming in at center. Like there has to be, we talked about the word continuity before. Like there has to be continuity on the offensive line. I really feel like the Giants could definitely consider a Tyler Linderbaum at 7.
Yeah. I can tell you're really high on Kayvon Thibodeau. Would you feel like it would be in the best interest for the Jets to potentially trade up for him?
I don't think
if it's possible.
I mean, if it's possible, like if Houston is like, hey, you can move up one spot and you could just give us, a 4th round pick or, whatever, like a future middle round pick or something like that, I would definitely consider it. But I think if you start talking future first, if you start talking, trading away 35 or 38, I think it's a little too rich for me now. And that's because the Jets aren't one player away. We don't just need that edge rusher and we're set. We need tackle. We need safety. We need tight end. We need so many different positions. I don't want to start giving away draft. And by the way, this also has a lot to do with free agency. If we figure, say we bring in Jesse Bates, we trade for a wide receiver, Calvin Ridley's on the team, and we sign Dalton Schultz at tight end, and now we pull off this trade, I can understand it. I definitely, I could see something like that happening because, if Joe Douglas identifies a guy that he wants, he will move up and down the draft. We saw that with AVT. We saw him trade down and ended up with Denzel Mims in 2020. Unfortunately, that hasn't really worked out, but it just goes to show that JD will maneuver the draft. He will give away picks. He will, try to acquire more picks. And he's not like one of these GMs that's just locked in like, oh, I'm sitting at spot number 4. This is where I'm going to be picking. I'm not even going to pick up the phone.
Yeah, I actually want to hear your thoughts about something. It's not really related to the draft. Well, it could be, but you mentioned wide receiver. I'm really intrigued to hear your thoughts about what they should do in terms of trading for a receiver, potentially getting one in free agency, or should we take one even potentially at number 10? Are you on the train of the Jets getting, either signing a guy like Allen Robinson, either trading for a guy like Calvin Ridley, or you saw the rumors about DK? I don't see that happening, or Amari Cooper, or where are you with this wide receiver room? And how would you like the Jets to bring in a guy alongside Elijah Moore and Corey Davis? Is it through the draft, trade market, free agency? What do you think?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, bringing Berrios back is important. He showed that he was a viable piece to the offense. He's a guy that Zach Wilson trusts. So you have three guys, assuming Berrios is back: Davis, Moore, and Berrios. I think for that fourth guy, because we need a number, like a true number one. I like Corey, but to me, he had a pretty disappointing season, and that's with the injury aside. I felt like there was just a lot of drops. The numbers weren't really there. He was brought in on the multi-year deal. We passed up on a lot of different wide receivers like Curtis Samuel, Juju Smith, like Kenny Golladay. We passed on a lot of wideouts to bring in Corey Davis, and he was the first off the board. Looking back at the last free agency period, so I think we need help. I think we need one more guy to this room, one legit playmaker. Now, will it be through free agency? I don't know. There's a lot of guys available. I don't see Adams hitting the market. Godwin could be on the move. I don't know. I feel like Godwin will probably be back with Tampa, but Allen Robinson's a guy that, you mentioned Mike Williams from the Chargers. I think he could be an option. Christian Kirk is a guy that I feel like would come in and fit this Jets system really, really good, really well. From a route running standpoint, from a standpoint of with the football in his hands, what can he do? I mean, I think he's really, really electrifying. Although you can make the argument Kirk would kind of take over the Braxton Berrios role. Can he win consistently on the outside? I don't know. So, I mean, then you start looking at trades: Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper. You talked about DK Metcalf before. I think, hey, if the price is right, I don't mind the Jets doing it. But if we have to trade away the 10th overall pick for a Calvin Ridley, with some off the field stuff, and we don't have Ridley under contract for years and years and years. He's only on the 1 year left on his deal. I think that's a little sketchy. It's a little dicey. Now, and you could bring up Amari Cooper. Well, he's getting paid, I think, like $20 million this season, next season. So with every option, I feel like there's pros and cons, and it's really just up to the Jets to kind of figure out and identify who is the best option for this Jets offense. What player brings more pros than cons?
Yeah, I think the wide receiver position is going to be the most interesting for me. Is Joe Douglas going to be super aggressive trading for one? Is he going to be giving a bag to someone in the free agency, or is he going to take one early in the draft, maybe at 10 or maybe early in the second round? We will find out, because I really believe that we're like one receiver away, including Braxton Berrios being back, to having an absolute dynamic receiving core for Zach Wilson, because that's the most important thing right now, and that is surrounding Zach Wilson with protection and weapons around him. So let's get into the round two. Let's get back into the draft talk. Who are the targets for you in round number 2? We got 35 and 38, assuming we're going to go with the mindset of what we did in the first round was all trench work. Say we got offensive linemen, say we got an edge rusher, or hypothetically speaking, where do you want to see the Jets tackle in the second round with those 2 picks?
I hate to keep bringing this up, but I feel like so much of it has to do with free agency and what we do in the first round. But again, I feel like the Jets have so many holes. So, it's safety. We can look at a Daxton Hill. I think Jaquan Brisker might not be there in round 2, but I think Dax Hill is he's going to be one of these guys that tests well throughout the combine, tests well at the Michigan Pro Day. Long, versatile athlete that can line up in multiple coverages, do a lot of different things. At tight end, Trey McBride, although he's another guy that I could see him going to like Jacksonville with that first pick in the second round, because they desperately need tight end help. We could look at wide receivers. Hopefully, maybe a guy like Jameson Williams falls, maybe a Chris Olave falls, something along those lines. As far as offensive linemen, maybe like a Darian Kennard, a Kenyon Green, if they, drop out of the first round. It's just so hard to tell at this point, because I mean, the Senior Bowl hasn't happened. The combine hasn't happened. Pro days, like there's still so many moving parts that I feel like, I mean, if we just go and compare like mock drafts like 1.0s to, 4 and 5.0s from like previous years, they're never the same, outside of like Trevor Lawrence, like being locked in at that first overall pick last year. But there's so many different guys, shooting up boards, falling down boards. Like as of right now, Derek Stingley supposedly is dropping down tons of teams' boards because of the injuries. He's not as highly rated as, some of the other guys like Gardner from Cincinnati and whatnot. But who knows? Maybe that's smoke. So it's just so, for me, early to tell at this point.
Yeah, it's so hard to tell, especially without, like you mentioned, the Senior Bowl, without knowing what the Jets did in free agency, because that's going to depict everything when it comes to the Jets' mindset heading into the draft. So let's talk about the Senior Bowl a little bit. The Jets are coaching there. We got a very interesting roster. So what's your thoughts about the Jets coaching in the Senior Bowl? How's that going to benefit the Jets getting a step ahead in the draft process? And also, is there any players in particular on the Jets roster that Jets fans should look out for that you would love them to draft?
Yeah, I mean, you just said it best. Like we just with the staff coaching at the Senior Bowl, that will automatically put them ahead of every other team outside of Detroit. The other team coaching because you have that on the field experience. Bill Belichick can't say, oh, outside of like workouts and stuff later on in the draft process, like they don't have those opportunities to line up with 10 other guys on the field and run them through specific plays. It's just not there, at least this early. I think having this week of practice is huge. Now, of course, there will be, like other coaches and whatnot will hit up the Jets coaching staff and be like, hey, could you play, this guy, maybe, a player's like a tweener. Can you line him up at safety one day and then linebacker the next day? So some stuff like that could potentially happen as well. But man, I mean, there's tons of guys: Charlie Kohler, Trey McBride, Devin Lloyd from Utah. There's a lot of, and by the way, I know we don't really need a quarterback, but the quarterbacks that the Jets are going to be coaching, like Kenny Pickett, Ritter, and Carson Strong, I think all three of those guys have a lot of potential. And then obviously Kenny Pickett's kind of like the QB1 right now. So I think that's going to be really interesting, kind of just as a fan of football, just kind of seeing how those three guys kind of respond to Mike Lafleur's coaching throughout the week.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Next week is where all the practices start. And then I think the game, I believe, is that Saturday. So look out for that, guys. Senior Bowl is going to be great. So the last thing I want to talk about with you, Ian, before we wrap things up, we went over the 2022 draft upcoming, but I want to hear your thoughts about the 2021 draft class from the New York Jets, because I personally think Joe Douglas hit a home run with this draft class. I think we all can agree that there's one player that's going to determine this draft class, if it's a home run or not, and that's Zach Wilson. But outside of the quarterback position, we went out there and traded up aggressively for Elijah Vera Tucker. We got Elijah Moore. We got Michael Carter II, Brandon Eccles. So give your overall summary, looking back at how this 2021 draft class performed as rookies and your expectations for them and the future of them heading into this year number 2.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, it's like, what more could you ask for? Like you have production from both first round picks, your second round pick. Michael Carter is the future RB1 of this football team. Yeah. And he's a 4th round pick. You know what I mean? Like not many Eccles is a starting outside corner. Like not many people, or not many teams rather, can go through the draft, pick whatever their 4, 5, 6 players and say, oh yeah, like all of them are going to be day one starters. All of them are going to contribute. All of them are going to show flashes at some point. Some, of course, more than others. But I mean, dude, you said it best. Like Zach Wilson, like everything is reliant on Zach Wilson. If he unfortunately busts or something like that, like that's going to fall directly on Joe Douglas's shoulders, and it could potentially cost him his job. But hey, if Zach Wilson, pans out and he does look like a franchise quarterback, whether it's next season or, the year after, or, of course, all these years combined, I think, I think we could look back on the 2021 class and say, hey, that was the first draft class that really got this thing going in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think if Joe Douglas can do anything close to what he did from that 2021 draft class in 2022, we are in really good shoes. What Joe Douglas is doing is absolutely everything you want to rebuild this team properly. He's trying to build through the draft. So use those picks and get the right guys. We saw him do it last year. I think he drafted the 4 offensive players in a row. I think we can all say that's the future of this offense. Let's get more protection for Zach. Let's get more weapons around Zach. Let's have a tremendous, tremendous offseason, Joe Douglas, please, so we can go into year number 2 with Zach Wilson, Robert Saleh as a competitive team. So the last question I have for you, Ian, obviously it's really hard to predict. This offseason is going to determine this question for you. But going into this season, what are your expectations for this team? What do you want to see? And like I said, the all season is going to really depict that answer. But for it to be a successful season last year, what do you want to see? Whether it's wins or losses, whether it's Zach Wilson progression, whether it's the defense stepping up, are there anything in particular that you really want to see the Jets go out there and do next season, where the season's all over and you have a smile on your face?
Yeah. So 3 things come to mind. Last year, it was just for me growing. Can you grow If you're going, fine. I can live with the losses. It's the first year of the rebuild. I understand it. Tons of youth injuries. I get it. But this year, I think the gloves are coming off. I think number one, 7 wins. I think 7 wins has to be the minimum, assuming that the Jets actually are aggressive in free agency and we bring in some more talent and we draft, a lot of guys that are contributing day one. I mean, I don't like if the Jets go out and sign, or, let's just say they trade for Calvin Ridley. We go sign a tight end. We, get some safety help, improve the offensive line, and the Jets get 5 wins next year. Like, man, that's going to be a really, really tough sell. It's going to be pretty depressing, honestly. So that's for me is number one, assuming the Jets are aggressive and we add a lot of talent, 7 wins, bare minimum. Number two, continued growth from Zach Wilson. I do not want to see regression. Right. One bad game here or there, that's fine. But I'm talking about games in a row, 4, 5, 6 games where he's constantly turning the football over. It just doesn't look like he's understanding it. It looks like he's taking steps back or he's getting worse or God forbid he gets hurt again or something like that. That to me just cannot happen. And then number 3, the defense has to get better. I mean, we cannot roll out there. We cannot roll out the 31st ranked defense next year, the 30th. And again, assuming that this Jets team has done some things in free agency in the draft to acquire talent, I don't want to see another bottom feeder in the league, right, on defense, especially year 2 in the same system with the defensive-minded head coach in Saleh. I don't want to see that at all. So for me, those are the 3 things.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think bare minimum 7 wins. Progression from Zach Wilson, consistency is key, and the defense, because we got a defensive-minded head coach. So it's time for Saleh to get his fingerprints on here. And we see the San Francisco 49ers right now. They're in the NFC Championship. You can see Saleh is over there. The Jets have a very similar approach to the 49ers, obviously, because Saleh is from there, Lafleur is from there, Benton's from there. So interesting to see what happens over there. But Ian, it was so awesome to have you on the channel to talk some Jets. We recapped basically everything when it comes to the season last year and previewing the upcoming offseason. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. Anything you'd like to say to any Jets fans watching, any content you got planned for the offseason, or anything you'd like to say before we finish it off?
Yeah, just thank you. Thank you to not only just you for having me on, but for everybody watching. I know this was like a longer style of video. Yeah. So, to just come on here and talk for however long, 20, 30 minutes, it's just been a blast. So thanks.
Yeah, appreciate you hopping on again. If you guys stayed into the end of the video, comment down below a Jet emoji so we know you stayed into the end, and make sure you guys subscribe to Jet Central, but I'm assuming you are. That'll be down below in the description if you're not. Check out Ian all over YouTube, Twitter. He's doing great things, of course, as we know. And let's attack this offseason with all gas, no break. Appreciate you guys, and we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.